How does a group of defeated, humiliated princes turn 13 years of pure suffering into their greatest strength? Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible periods of the Mahabharata, the forced exile of the Pandavas. And let me tell you, this was not just some punishment. Oh no, this was a crucible, an absolute trial by fire that forged them into the heroes they were always meant to be.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're in the Kamyaka forest. The Pandava brothers and their queen, Draupadi, have just lost everything, and I mean everything, in a totally rigged game of dice. Their kingdom, their riches, their freedom, all gone. Just try to imagine that. 1 minute you're royalty, living in a palace, and the next you have literally nothing. You're shamed, you're living in a cave, you are at rock bottom.
And in that despair, something else starts to bubble up. Pure, unadulterated rage. Bhima, the powerhouse of the group, is just seeing red. He wants revenge, and he wants it now. He's ready to just march right into the capital and end the whole thing. It's that raw, powerful impulse for payback. But as they're all about to find out, raw anger isn't the same thing as real strength.
So that's where their exile begins, in this pit of despair and fury. But right when it looks like they're about to be totally consumed by it, a pivotal figure shows up, their cousin, and, let's be honest, their divine guide, Krishna.
Now, here's the thing about Krishna. He doesn't show up with a bunch of comforting words and a shoulder to cry on. No, he arrives to challenge them. He's there to force them to look in the mirror and confront their own role in this disaster, and to set them on a path of real, meaningful growth.
And this, right here, is the first major turning point in their whole exile. Krishna's intervention isn't gentle. It's a series of hard, necessary truths that are about to completely reframe how they see their situation.
Krishna just breaks it down for them, piece by piece. He completely dismantles any sense of pure victimhood they might be feeling. He doesn't give them pity, he gives them accountability. He points out that it was their pride that kept them glued to that gambling table. And since they all agreed to the terms, they all share the responsibility. This isn't just a punishment someone else forced on them. It's a promise they made, and now they are bound to keep it.
So why do they have to keep this terrible promise? Well, it all comes down to this one central concept: dharma. You see, for Krishna, dharma isn't just a nice idea. It's the cosmic law of right conduct. To break their word, no matter how unfair the situation was, would be an act of adharma, unrighteousness. So their first job isn't revenge. It's to uphold their sworn duty.
But he doesn't just leave them with a lecture. He turns to Draupadi, who's weeping, and he makes this absolutely chilling promise. He assures her that, yeah, they have to endure this for now, but justice is coming. Everyone who took part in her humiliation, from the ones who did it to the ones who just stood by and watched, they will all pay. It's this brilliant balance. Uphold your dharma now and trust that cosmic justice will handle the rest later.
Okay, so with this new mindset, the Pandavas start their long exile. But their commitment to dharma is about to get tested, and not just by the hardships of the forest, but by the calculated cruelty of their own family.
Their very first test is hospitality. A bunch of priests and loyal followers show up, but the Pandavas have zero food to give them, which is a huge shame for a king. So the sun god Surya, seeing their devotion, gives Draupadi a magical vessel. It provides unlimited food every day until she herself is eaten. It's a little miracle that shows them, in this forest, sticking to your dharma brings its own rewards.
So on one hand, you've got the Pandavas out in the wild, learning how to be resilient, finding a kind of grace even in their suffering.
And on the other hand, back in the palace, the Kauravas are plotting something truly nasty. They're not happy just winning. They decide to organize this massive royal tour, a Ghoshayatra, with one unspoken goal: to parade all their fancy wealth right past the Pandavas' camp and just rub their faces in it.
But, irony in the Mahabharata is a powerful thing. The Kauravas' loud, arrogant parade ends up ticking off a tribe of celestial beings, the Gandharvas, who attack and just wipe the floor with them. The gloaters become the captives, totally helpless and humiliated. Talk about a plan backfiring. So this presents the Pandavas with an incredible moral test. Their tormentors, the people who ruined their lives, are captured and about to be killed. Bhima and Arjuna are like, awesome, let him rot. It's perfect karma, right? But what does the king of Dharma, Yudhishthira, do?
He makes this absolutely profound choice. He says their dharma is to help anyone who is helpless, even their worst enemies. Because if they just stand by and watch, what makes them any better than the Kauravas? So, reluctantly, Bhima and Arjuna go and rescue their cousins, completely shaming them with an act of supreme, undeniable nobility.
Now, this moral victory is huge, but Arjuna, ever the pragmatist, knows that high morals alone aren't going to win the war that's surely coming. He needs more power. And so, he sets off on a solo quest to get divine weapons from the gods themselves.
On his journey, he runs into what looks like a simple forest hunter. Arjuna, still full of that warrior pride, announces himself as the greatest archer in the world. And the hunter, who is actually the god Shiva in disguise, just cuts right through that ego with one simple question. Greatest? By whose measuring scale? It's a huge lesson in perspective. All our worldly titles are, well, they're relative.
A fight breaks out, and Arjuna, the so-called greatest archer, gets effortlessly defeated by this hunter. And it's only then, when he's been stripped of all his pride and confidence, that he finally gets it. He's in the presence of a god. Once he's completely humbled, Shiva reveals himself and grants him the ultimate celestial weapon, the Pashupat. The lesson couldn't be clearer. You only get access to true power after you've found true humility.
But his trials aren't over. Up in the heavens, he faces a totally different kind of test: temptation. A celestial nymph, Urvashi, tries to seduce him, but he turns her down, saying he sees her as a mother figure. Well, she gets angry and curses him to lose his manhood. But later, that curse gets changed to last for just 1 year of his choosing, which, believe me, he uses as a brilliant disguise during their final year of exile. He's mastered his pride, and now he's mastered his desire.
So the Pandavas are going through all these direct experiences, these trials, but their education is also being deepened by another really powerful tool: learning from the stories and struggles of other people.
At one point, even the stoic, unshakable Yudhishthira just breaks down. He's so overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow that he cries out that surely no one in all of history has ever suffered as much as he has. It's a moment of intense self-pity that I think we can all understand. Who hasn't felt that way at some point?
A visiting sage, Markandeya, hears him, and instead of just saying, there, it'll be okay, he tells him a story, the story of Ram. Ram was exiled for even longer. His suffering wasn't his fault at all, and his wife Sita was kidnapped. The story is this powerful reminder that, you know what, you are not alone in your suffering. Others have endured far worse, and they did it with grace and by sticking to their dharma.
So, when you put it all together, what started as this horrible tragedy became a profound education. Over 13 years, that forest taught them what a palace never could. They learned about shared responsibility, about the humility you need for real power, the self-control to master your desires, and the perspective to see your own pain in a bigger context. And above all, they learned to hold on to Dharma, no matter how hard it got.
They absolutely transformed themselves. They walked into that forest as angry, defeated princes, and they would walk out as wise, self-possessed kings ready to reclaim what was theirs. They literally turned suffering into strength. But the final lingering question is this: in the brutal, soul-crushing reality of a war against their own family, would all of that moral and spiritual strength actually be enough